Hey everybody, I'm Charlie, Senior Editor with PMQ, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, How a Culture-Rich Pizza Concept Thrives by Blending Brand Identity, Guest Engagement, and Tech Insights. In this webinar, you'll hear about how Pizza Patrón used data-driven decisions to fortify its brand. Before we get started, however, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping notes. First, a recording of this session will be linked at pmq.com. You can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Please share that far and wide. Secondly, if you'd like to download a PDF of the slide deck, it's available under the Attendee Resources widget. The Resources widget is also where you'll find a downloadable case study dedicated to today's subject matter. It's pretty great. You should check it out. Finally, I'd like to note that today's presenters will be answering audience questions at the end of the program, so please feel free to submit a question at any time, and hopefully we'll get to yours. I'd like to give a hearty shout out to Revel Systems for sponsoring today's webinar. We appreciate it. Revel has long been a great partner to PMQ and its sister brands, so thank you. Okay, today's presenters include Juan Reyes, Director of Marketing and Development with Pizza Patrón, and Sydney Kita, Senior Marketing Communications Manager at Revel Systems. Without further ado, Sydney, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. So thanks also to everyone who is tuning in, whether you're watching live or you watch this later on demand. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you. And I want to go ahead, Juan, and get things started with some context, especially for anybody who is not already familiar with Pizza Patrón, the 83 live restaurants that you have. And I believe there's a few in development, and that you also have some pretty large aspirations for growth in the coming years. So if you could just give the audience an overview of the brand and what makes you guys unique.
Yeah, well, Sydney, thank you for having us. And we're delighted to be here. Great partner with Revel. And just a quick overview of Pizza Patrón. As everyone can see, we are headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. And as you would expect, you might imagine with the name like Pizza Patrón, right? There's a lot of culture here in San Antonio. So we're headquartered here in San Antonio. We opened our first location in 1986. We started franchising in 2003. And, you know, we're at 83 locations today. We hope to double that number. That is our goal over the next 5 years. And we brought on some new team members here recently, hired our first ever COO to kind of help us accomplish that. And I don't know what our audience knows about Pizza Patrón, but one of the neater things about our story is that it's connected to another concept, and which is Wingstop. So the founder of Pizza Patrón actually started both concepts, first Pizza Patrón and then Wingstop, before moving on from Wingstop, focusing on Pizza Patrón, franchising in 2003. So, you know, we pioneered the Latin style pizza, which is why I say being here in San Antonio just makes perfect sense for our brand. So when we started the concept back in 1986, you know, our mission was to offer, you know, first generation Latinos and Mexicans, you know, a bit of a taste and flavor from their home. We wanted them to feel welcome and comfortable in our restaurants. So the brand's original locations, you know, we had a lot of Spanish menus, played Spanish music, and probably offered, you know, very affordable options for our guests. While Latin influence, you know, still plays a part in Pizza Patrón today, we hope to evolve and grow a little bit beyond that as we, you know, reach out and double our restaurants over the next 5 years.
Absolutely. And, you know, what's really cool about the concept is you can find those pizza classics if you're more of a traditionalist, but you also can find some really cool Latin flair as well. So I'm curious just to hear a little bit more from you about the brand's evolution over time in terms of shifting marketplaces and consumer expectations. And then we can, you know, we've got some beautiful visuals here. So we could also maybe dive into a few of the things that you offer that you can't find at any other pizza place.
Yeah, so I'll start off with what we're showing here on screen. And one of the more popular items and recently launched, as in like the last 3 years, is our Latin-inspired pizza, the carne asada. So, you know, it's topped with premium tender cuts of grilled steak, fresh cut poblanos, red onions, all of that over a roasted tomatillo salsa verde. And then it's baked on something that's probably not common to the pizza game, which is our signature maize crust. And then it's finished off with fresh cilantro. And then on the side, it's served with fresh lime and a side of roasted salsa verde. Now, for those of you who maybe are really into Taco Tuesday and maybe have been to Texas or tried a lot of Mexican cuisine, this kind of sounds like maybe a taco, right? This pizza is actually inspired by the Latinos community affinity and love for tacos, which is why it comes on the side with that salsa verde dip, and then of course some lime wedges. And a lot of folks, right, you eat it taco style. And this is one of our pizzas that we like to call around here a San Antonio style pizza. So one of my faves, one of the more popular and successful launches that we've had. Definitely, if you're ever anywhere near our restaurants, highly recommend it. It's very different than you might expect from a traditional pizza place. But that's an awesome pizza, Sydney. Hopefully, some of our audience get to try it, or at least we get their mouth wider and they're thinking pizza, and if not, maybe tacos.
I think you can't go wrong with either one of those. So it sounds like a winning strategy to me. One other thing that I'd love to just get your perspective on, given your role in the marketing world, is as you are working on menu innovation and introducing some of these newer items, maybe seasonal concepts to market, what are some of the ways and tactics that you use to introduce when your menu changes?
Yeah, so I'm a hone in on the word seasonal, right? So if you look at that same slide, you see a pizza by the name of Diablo. And this pizza actually launched right around Halloween. It obviously fits the season. And for us, Diablo in this sense infers how spicy this pizza is. So it's got, fresh jalapenos, a cheddar mozz mix, pepperoni, and then a spicy marinara base, right? And it's the perfect amount of spiciness. So in terms of launching new products, we really hone in on the season. And try to lean into, again, consumers' affinity for maybe wanting a themed product. So just like the carne asada I mentioned earlier, we launched that around Cinco de Mayo to help us. Again, people's affinity for Mexican cuisine it peaks around that time. And it was a very successful launch for us. So those are some of the tactics that we use. We try to lean into, again, consumers, I think, expectation. Just like right now, what are we in, right? I mean, in fact, we probably already passed it, pumpkin spice season, right? I mean, it starts now in the middle of August, but the original concept was seasonal. And same way, we just, it's a playbook, and that's the way we like to introduce new products as much as we can, align them to the season and then theme them out that way.
I love it. So then another thing that I wanted to touch on is just in terms of anyone who's in hospitality knows it's more expensive to acquire customers than to retain them. So for repeat visits, whether it's through your tantalizing menu offerings or perhaps a more structured program, how do you build programs that bring in new customers while keeping them coming back and engaged, wanting more?
Yeah, so I think part of those programs is the product innovation, right? On that previous slide, and I didn't get to touch on it, but we have a partnership with Tajín Wings, and I don't know if our audience knows Tajín, but it's getting to the point, at least here in Texas and in the Southwest region, where there's salt, pepper, and then there's Tajín, right? It's a chili lime seasoning. A little spicy, just enough, right? That works really well with fruit. And it's like, what the heck is a pizza place doing with this seasoning? Well, what we made was a Tajín Wings, and it was a natural partnership because of our Latin roots and culture. And these are the programs, right? Our vehicles for keeping guests coming back, right? And I think we have a good understanding of who our target audience is as far as their expectation. Again, we've been around since 1986. We've been serving the community Latin-inspired pizzas, and the classics, of course, as well. But we're known for the Latin-inspired pizza, and that's the expectation. So over time, we've earned the right to develop these very unique recipes without somebody saying, whoa, that sounds really weird, right? Or you know what, I don't think I like that mix. So it's already a built-in expectation from our audience. So our programs really are that innovation. And that product was actually, the Tajín wings were launched at the beginning of this year. And they're up to our third bestseller in terms of our wing flavors that we have. It's always a challenge, I think, to topple. And all of us, right? All of us have our P-mix, and we look at that, and we have our established workhorses, right? The faves, and it's going to be a challenge for any new product or innovation to maybe take the #1 spot. But for us, the fact that it climbed that high so quickly just speaks to our guest expectation of the product, their love of it, right? And this is how we really try to keep guests coming back from a product innovation standpoint. And from a tech standpoint, right, we obviously want to understand, how successful is this rollout, right? Maybe we do see a boost in sales or in transactions, but we want to understand at the micro level, okay, and I just mentioned, how is it performing within the P-mix? And very quickly, we were able to understand how it peaked at #3 in terms of the flavors that we sell within our wings category. And obviously, we're very proud of that. Our partners, Tajín, we're very proud of that. And that's a partnership that we're going to continue doing and continue identifying those windows and opportunities to launch products like that.
I'd also love to get a little bit more insight into Patrón Perks. So your loyalty and rewards program for those folks who already maybe are conditioned to look for the next exciting menu offering. What does that program look like? And if you have a current loyalty count, I'd love to hear what that is and just some of the tenets of the offerings.
Yeah, so we were actually pretty late to the loyalty game. And, like we mentioned, we've been around since 1986. And initially, we weren't really a tech savvy company. We partnered with Revel in 2014. And I think we've learned a lot from Revel, and we hope they've learned a lot from us. But what I'm trying to say is that we were very late into adopting technology. We depended a lot on our location and our tenure within those marketplaces. But obviously, we know that only lasts so long. There is churn, there is turnover from a guest perspective. And within the pizza industry, as it is within the restaurant industry, there's just a lot of competition. Guests have a lot of options. So we developed the loyalty program with our partners. Thankfully, it integrated very smoothly with Revel, and that was launched actually in 2020. And our timing was that it actually launched in the middle of the pandemic, so the rollout was a little challenging in terms of training our team members and having them ready from that perspective. But we've made tremendous progress since then. We've done a revamp of the program, and our guest count, our loyalty database, is almost at 200,000, right? So I think the last time you and I spoke, Sydney, we were at about 180. So we're pretty proud that we continue to grow. And it's one of the vehicles, right? One of the channels how we introduce this product innovation, right? Whether it's offering a reward for signing up. So actually, when we launched our carne asada pizza, we offered guests $1 off. When they signed up for Patrón Perks, they received $1 off in their wallet, in their reward wallet that they could apply towards trying that product. And at the same time, of course, what do we want? We want that digital ID of our consumers so that we better understand their patterns, the frequency, right? I mean, that is crucial that we understand the frequency of our loyalty guests. And a non-anonymous guest, right, that comes in, we don't know anything about them. All we know is that You know, they spent money. So you have a bucket of consumers where you know nothing about them. And then you have a bucket of loyalty members where you know specifics about them. You know, the last time they came, you know, their favorite product. And that's a world of information that just makes a difference between potentially, you know, being positive in sales and being negative in sales, right? And all those key data insights are crucial to continue to grow.
Yeah, the insights make a world of difference, especially in today's competitive landscape. And Juan, real quick, I did see a question come in that was, can we ask questions? The answer is yes. We will hold Q&A to the end, but if you have questions that are coming to you in real time, go ahead and enter those into the chat, and we will do our best to get to all of the questions that come in towards the end of the presentation. So back to, we were in the land of loyalty rewards and then just marketing tactics in general that go hand in hand with a successful brand of any kind, especially pizza in the crowded marketplace. And something that just really warms my marketing heart is your recent contest. So I would love to hear from you a little bit more about the box design contest and some of the surrounding initiatives for that, because it's just a really cool program.
Yeah, so just like I mentioned earlier, right? I mean, we thrive and really lean into the Latino culture, right? That's part of the Pizza Patron culture, founded, you know, way back in 1986. So any opportunity that we have to celebrate and lean into that, we're absolutely going to do it, right? We believe, you know, traditions and culture are established year over year, and you have to earn that, and you have to talk to your consumers. So this contest is in celebration of 20 years in San Antonio. So the first franchise restaurant opened here in San Antonio in 2003. And we figured, look, let's throw a big party, which is actually later this month. And let's invite all the San Antonio local artists, right, to design a pizza box that, in their eyes, you know, captures the spirit of Pizza Patron in San Antonio. And, you know, the awesome thing about this, and I imagine all of our attendees, right, are maybe within the branding or marketing space, or maybe even the tech space. But what do we know when we work for a company or a brand? You know, we're always protecting our brand. You know, we go out of our way to protect our brand, and sometimes it's even to the detriment of the brand. And let me elaborate on that a little bit. So some of the designs that you see here, we could never design in-house because we're so wired to protect our brand. You know, we're like, no, you know what? That's off-brand. We cannot do that, right? I don't know how many times I've said that, or maybe one of my colleagues has said that, or maybe our agency presents a concept and it's, you know, edgy, and we're like, we cannot do that. You know, we're constantly protecting our brands, and rightfully so. That's part of our job. But when we invite it, you know, just local artists say, just, you know, look into your heart, look into your creativity, and bring this to life, right? Those were basically the parameters. Make it San Antonio, make it Pizza Patron. And this is what we got, right? And some of these are really out there. They are really out there, and some of them I really love. So the plan is with this box, actually, these are the top 5 finalists. The plan with this box is that we're going to print 60,000 of them. 60,000. Every pizza that we sell here in San Antonio will come in this box as of October 28th for us. And then how we communicated this contest was, as much as we could, just through earned media. So we did a PR campaign. We invited local celebrities to participate in our contest. You know, like Chris Perez that you see here, he's actually one of our partners. But he is a local music artist, Grammy Award winning, right, from San Antonio Reed. So again, we leaned into as much as we could to speak to our culture. And so we're actually, these are the top 5. Since then, we've narrowed it down to 3. And then internally, we're going to be selecting the winner. I already know which one I selected. I hope everybody's looking at it and so like, you know what? I like that one, right? And there's some safe ones, and there's some that are really out there. And, you know, my goal is that when somebody walks into Pizza Patron, that and they get their pizza, whether it's the carne asada or the Diablo, that they're like, wait a minute, you guys changed your pizza box, right? We need it to be noticeable, right? We need it to be, we've all heard this Instagram worthy, and that is our goal. And I think we've achieved our goal. We've I think strengthened our relationship with our community, and that's really what we want to do in terms of fostering that connection and deepening the culture.
Absolutely. And I do, before we move off of the pizza boxes, just because it's such a really cool way to honor 20 years, I'd love to know, how many total entries did you get? And then what were your primary concerns heading into the contest?
Sydney, I was, when the contest started, this was like mid-August, right? We announced it, press release, we put up the website for that people could submit their designs. And my biggest worry was that we were not going to get enough designs. I was freaking out. Okay. I mean, it was like, oh my goodness, this thing's going to be a dud. Right. And, but sure enough, slowly but surely, we actually, one of the other things that we did, we attended art festivals and, put up our tent, and we talked about this contest. Some of our celebrity, judges and partners, they were actually also within the arts community. So then we did outreach and networking just as organically as possible through those channels. So that was actually one of my biggest concerns, that we just would not have enough entries. So by the end of it, we ended up with a little bit over 100 submissions, and most of them came in at the very last second. And what I didn't think about was that an artist is obviously going to take their time, right? What I did not mention, Sydney, was that we're also, once we select the winner, that winner will also get $2,000 as the grand prize, and of course, printing and showcasing of their artwork and design. But at the last second, a lot of these artists were submitting their designs. And what I didn't think about, and what some of the artists were explaining to me, was like, well, I'm working on my design, right? I'm not going to whip it up in a day or two, right? I'm going to give it some thought. There's a lot at stake here. And sure enough, about 25% of those submissions came in at the 11th hour. I mean, they were just coming in. In fact, the neat story, we even had, this is a contest in San Antonio, okay? But obviously we showcase it on social media, and Chris Perez posted about the contest on his Instagram, and he's got over 1 million followers. So somebody actually drove from Plano, Texas, which is 4.5, 5 hours from San Antonio. Even though they didn't have to do this, they painted their design on the box itself. It's beautiful with acrylic and everything, acrylic paint. And they drove it down to one of our restaurants here in San Antonio. Again, that was not one of the requirements. It was just, hey, photograph it, submit it on the website. But that's how hungry this artist was to win, that they were, I'm going to bring you the original artwork. And one day we walk into one of our restaurants here in San Antonio, and there it was. Nobody knew what it was like. What is this, right? Eventually, everybody connected the dots, and I was like, holy smokes! This is one of the art submissions for our contest. But over 100 submissions, and that was my biggest concern, was that we just wouldn't get enough submissions, enough quality submissions. But thankfully, by the end of it, I was very pleased, and I just, the more I look at this slide and those designs, I'm super happy with the results.
Absolutely, and nothing motivates a creative quite like a deadline. So I'm sure that had something to do with it too. Wow, what a cool story! I love the above and beyond, and that someone actually physically drove their submission to one of your store locations. That's pretty cool. Totally switching gears, leaving the creativity behind just a touch, I would love to actually shift to the role that technology plays in driving operational improvements in terms of your ability to continuously offer a great experience to your customers. And I know you've touched on a few things already between the loyalty program and also the product mix, or PMix. So, if there are other things, or if you want to elaborate more on those two topics, that are really helping you guys just hone your strategy and your approach. I would really love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, without a doubt, technology, is integrated into every facet of the business now. Gone are the days of pen and paper tickets, and the glory days of the mom and pop techniques of muscling things through, right, and calling the order back. That's just, there's nothing wrong with the mom and pop charm, if you will. And for the longest, that's the way we were set up. We'd write the ticket, right? There were specific codes, you'd run it back, put it on the make table, and, you start making products. But as the need to roll out, and innovate new products, that's just not feasible, right? I mean, I think we all know that. So absolutely, technology is vital in everything that we do now. Every rollout, every product that I mentioned, technology and the POS, right, are a crucial role in the success of those rollouts, pre and post, right? So we have a dedicated team in-house that's dedicated to programming in the Revel system, pushing those out right into the restaurants, verifying that everything mechanically works on our end, from a food cost perspective, that is pulling, the right ingredients and everything to ensure that those post reports on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, actually for us, are accurate. Because without that, then we don't really know what's occurring until sometimes it's too late, So no doubt about it, technology is crucial for us, and Revel allows us that ability to quickly deploy our programs.
And then in terms of the cross section between tech and marketing, I think another thing that I'm curious about, and I think perhaps some of our audience members will be as well, are what are those key performance indicators that you really closely monitor to make sure that the tech is informing you on those factors that will be the biggest needle movers for your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the obvious, right? Ticket average, transaction, net sales. But on a daily basis, one of the things that we measure is discounts. Because a lot of the times, marketing programs, there is a discounted incentive, whether it's a deal or a coupon or even a reward, right? That has a discount with it. So that's one of the things we monitor in terms of year over year and week over week, because it's what if our discount, let's say the dollar off of the carne asada, right? It is successful, awesome, right? We love that. People are trying it. We expected that, but the hit rate is above and beyond what we expected. So we have to pull back on that, because at some point it's just not sustainable, right? We cannot live in a world where we're constantly discounting and then conditioning our consumers to expect a discount for everything. So that's definitely a metric that we measure every single day, and there's conversations around it. If we identify a restaurant that has a significant amount of discounts, right, then we dive into the discounts report and identify, okay, what happened here? Why is this restaurant 200% above everyone else? And perhaps it was too many comp meals, too many refunded meals, right? And those are usually indicators of a deeper issue, right, within perhaps the operation that require attention. But I think that's one of the elements that we look at on a daily basis from a broader perspective, perhaps weekly or monthly. The PMix, for marketing purposes, it is crucial that we understand our best sellers and our best performers. For us, because our first market is in Dallas, and it's also our largest market, we're sometimes even ourselves surprised to find that the number one specialty in one market is vastly different than it is in another. So what that allows us to do is to lean into that. So give you an example, using our Patron Perks program, We don't necessarily have a sell on that product, but what we do is if we have a combo that has two pizzas, we feature the #1 and the #2 bestseller within the photography, right? And then we highlight them and call them out. So in our case, in the Dallas market, our #1 seller is our Hawaiian pizza, our Hawaiiana, and then also our Supreme, which in our world we call it the Patrona. So we feature those products in the food photography, and then we highlight them by labeling them, right? And then in the San Antonio market, our #1 seller here is our 5-meat pizza. Same thing, we highlight it here in that market. And then we make those adjustments with each of our markets. And we use our loyalty program to communicate that, whether it's a text message or an e-blast. Those are the things, those are the actions and the insights that allow us to just gain that 1-2% additional sales that, again, that can make the difference between being positive or negative, right, year over year.
Those are all great things to monitor closely. And my last prepared question, which may be a little bit better for your operations team, but I'm going to risk it, is whether you can share any specific cost savings or operational improvements that your team has been able to realize through some of the data insights coming through.
Yeah, so our team is always looking to improve. Food costs, labor are key data points to help us identify opportunities within each restaurant. And we're actually acquiring and taking advantage of data straight from the API Revel has provided. And a lot of support is allowing us to understand how to do that and how to acquire that data and what to do with it. So we bring in the raw data over through the Revel data connector, and in doing that, we've been able to really ad hoc some reports and get very granular in what we want to see and help our restaurant managers to efficiently schedule their employees, maintain labor costs, and to help our accounting team with some of those establishment payment reports, right? So there's a lot of built into Revel, but we also, again, bring in that raw data because we have each of our departments has their own very specific needs. And thankfully, in my case, right, from a marketing perspective, I have direct access to the PMix report. But some of our other departments have different needs. And, again, we just bring in all the raw data, build some of those reports with more detailed information that when they have very specific, needs.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So at this point, I do think we're going to open the floor for other questions, and Charlie is going to help us navigate some of those.
Yeah, thank you both. We will indeed turn to audience questions now. We've already had a bunch rolling in, which is great, but there's still time to get your question in. So if you have not done so already, you can do that now. Juan, we had one operator who wanted to know, they said, as a follow-up, you said you revamped your loyalty program. What went wrong on the first rollout? And what are some key learnings you have from the loyalty program?
Yeah, so there was two objectives with revamping the program. One was to either reduce costs or maintain cost. Right, obviously that's part of how you measure your ROI. And the second was we wanted to improve performance. So we actually did switch vendors as part of that revamp. One of the challenges that we had, and I'll be perfectly honest, we still have some of these challenges, is our users were struggling to redeem their rewards, right? They've earned the rewards, they're coming in, they're giving their phone number at the register, or they're ordering online, gaining the rewards. And our program was structured where it was a reward exchange. And some of our users were constantly struggling with that aspect of it. And we're still, as we mentioned, right, we're 80 strong locations, 80 plus strong locations, but we're not in a position to go out and develop $1 million app, right? So which is why we partner with some third parties. to accomplish that. And there are some limitations in what we can implement into our rewards program. And this is right the challenges of at the scale that we're at. So that was probably the biggest issue, was our guests were struggling with redeeming their rewards. So we did our best to address that. We have, because we've seen our participation rate increase over the last year. Part of the revamp also included accounting for commodities, right? So COGS are constantly changing in their dynamics. So we published a new point system, keeping the same mechanic itself, just increasing, right, the mandatories and the requirements for guests to earn those points, meaning they have to spend a little bit more to earn more money, right? And that's actually not a bad thing, right? From speaking from the restaurant perspective.
Absolutely. Juan, got another one for you here. Linda wants to know, do you do social media, billboards, radio, TV commercials to get your new productions out? And if so, have you seen an increase in new customers from that? She also added kind of a sweet personalized note, admire your passion about your brand and connecting with our Latino community, which I thought was cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Linda. I certainly do appreciate that. And look, I think if we're in branding or marketing, right, we you literally, in my case, you wear your brand on your sleeve, right? And for us, and for me, this is what it's all about, right? El Patron, Pizza Patron. But to answer your question, absolutely, right? We have a dedicated social media team that does our organic social. We also run paid social. This is what we call one of our workhorses. So it's always on all year. In terms of like radio, TV commercials, because in some of our markets, our footprint is so small, we are challenged to do, a broadcast, because we would have a lot of waste in impressions, right? We just don't have enough restaurants, right? I mean, they'll see the ad and then we're 7 miles away. It's like, you know what? I'm not driving that far. But in markets where we do have penetration, just like in DFW, on occasion we do run billboards. But it's also, product based. So again, referencing San Antonio, since we are running our 20th anniversary campaign, that's a message that we want to get out. Earlier in the year, we developed T-shirts that say, "We run this city," right? And we want to bring that to life. So we connected with 2 local radio stations. We working with the local DJs, and then in their own voice, they talk about 20 years of Pizza Patron, right? So just very localized, as authentic as possible, to really, again, deepen that connection. And part of that also included a PR campaign that's still ongoing. So we've had we've been in a lot of local newspaper articles, whether it's on the business side or on the food side, really pushing the message that Pizza Patron is part of San Antonio. Not only are we inspired by San Antonio, but we're from here, and we want you to root for the hometown team, right? So my comparison is to, wherever you're from, Linda, or anyone else listening, right? You root for your hometown team, whether that's in football or basketball, right? Predominantly, that's the case. And that's what we want. That's what I want our customers here in San Antonio is to, before they go online and order from a competitor, wanting to think is like, you know what? I think I want to try my local pizza shop, Pizza Patron, right? And that's what this campaign is really about. Now, when we rolled out the carne asada pizza, right, it's a huge innovation. We absolutely did radio in the majority of our markets. It's a necessity, right? It's a quick way to get impressions out there. And if your creative is fun, in our case, right, with the product like carne asada, it just really stands out. It was a no-brainer. And we had huge success when we rolled out that product. Any new product launch, absolutely, right? I would definitely encourage anyone to explore that within their own budget.
Yeah, that's great. Another operator, Jordan, asking, do you use any other tech in order to pull relevant data? They threw out Restaurant 365 as maybe an example.
Yeah, this is actually a very timely. It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but we are actually in the process of exploring that with Restaurant 365. I know our tech team has been talking to them about partnering with them to help us pull all of that data. You know, in my case, being on the marketing side, I'm the benefactor. I benefit from everything that they pull. But absolutely, you know, and sometimes that's a requirement, you know, and you know, a third party to come in and help you, you know, slice and dice that information, just like we have a third party for our loyalty program. You know, and in our case, right, it integrated so smoothly with Revel. But absolutely, that's being explored. Hopefully, that's something that we get to announce here pretty soon on our end.
Great, and I think we just have one more question here for you. Do you run into challenges with brand consistency across locations, and how do you address those, maybe especially with your tech stack?
Absolutely. You know, I think with as many locations as we have, you know, we're in 4 major cities here in Texas. You know, we're in Houston, DFW, San Antonio, and Austin, and some of those locations are franchise locations, and we absolutely do run into brand consistency issues. You know, and it's sometimes as simple as like, I made my own window clean. You know, and you know, we love the initiative, of course, but it's not quality, right? And that's what we're here for. And you know, at the size we are, right, we conduct audits of the restaurants. We have a team dedicated to visiting our restaurants, ensuring that they're meeting the brand standards. You know, from the exterior to the back of the house, right? All of those things. And there's always challenges as far as how we address those. You know, that's actually, you know, with that visit, we addressed it on the spot. Obviously, everything's documented, followed up via email to ensure, right, that there is proper follow-up and documentation of that the issue at hand was addressed, whether it was, you know, something graphic related or visual related, or even, you know, product related. In terms of technology, you know, because there is 80+ locations, from time to time, you know, you are going to find that, you know, one of your Revel systems perhaps has a different price point, you know. So those are things that are constantly need to be audited. Again, thankfully, we have a dedicated team that stays on top of that.
Awesome. That's going to conclude our program. Many thanks to Revel Systems once again, just for making this program possible. To you, our audience, for attending. Sydney for driving for part of this. Thank you. And of course, to Juan for sharing his insights with Pizza Patron. We really appreciate your time and valuable insights. As mentioned, a recording of this program will be linked at pmq.com. You can use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Please share it far and wide. And thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.